Howdy folks, Jamboree here, and welcome to another episode of The Church of Tim Curry, the show where we talk about films starring His Holiness, Tim Curry. Joining me is my co-host, Viva Becker.
Hello, welcome to The Church of Tim Curry.
Sponsored by... What would sponsor our show? What would sponsor our show?
Tim Curry.
Yes, I would love if he personally endorsed this. This is fantastic! Just have a voice clip every time. And it's sponsored by Tim Curry. Aha! Anyway, so we're going to be talking about Don Bluth's The Pebble and the Penguin. Hubie is a shy penguin with feelings for another penguin called Marina, but he wants to find the perfect pebble to express his love for her. One night, he wishes on a star, and an emerald pebble falls from the sky. Hubie runs to take the pebble to Marina, but the evil bully Drake, voiced by Tim Curry, who wants Marina to himself, demands that Hubie gives him the pebble. When Hubie refuses, Drake throws him into the water. Hubie ends up on an adventure, and with help from a grumpy rockhopper penguin called Rocco, he must get back home to give the pebble to Marina before Drake forces Marina to be with him. Oh, and Rocco wants to learn to fly, even though he's a penguin. Okay, so your thoughts on Pebble and Penguin, Viva?
Everything that's not the main thing looks good. The backgrounds look nice, and the sweeping shots look nice. It's just the characters and the story and kind of that stuff that's horrifying.
Horrifying? See, for me, my biggest issue is that it's painfully average. Just boringly average. And like, after finishing watching it, I just want to sleep. I really do, and I know I shouldn't because I've got so much to do, but that's how I feel. I feel really sleepy. I know to a lot of people, this is a very cherished film from their childhood, and all power to you if you feel that way, but personally, I just couldn't stand it, and I actually put it on number 2 for my worst Don Bluth movies list as well. It just doesn't try.
Number 2... Well, I thought it was below average, personally. I've never been a huge fan of penguins myself. I always think it's weird when they try to have those talking penguin movies. But I gotta say, the character designs on this, they didn't even really look like penguins that much.
How so?
Well, for one thing, I don't know if you noticed or not, but Tim Curry was playing this disgusting penguin hybrid wolf thing.
The penguin on steroids, basically.
Well, he had a wolf face, and he was walking around on all fours, and I don't think that's how it works.
Oh, I never noticed that. Interesting.
Well, you know, when he was, like, leaning over his evil cliff, and he was
evil
like...
cliff?
He was huffing away and doing his plans and stuff. He would then, like, drop down onto all fours and flex his steroid penguin back muscles.
Yeah, I never noticed that. Interesting.
He also had giant wolf teeth that penguins do not have.
I think all the penguins have teeth. I didn't think about that.
Disgusting. Why would they have teeth?
Okay, so I don't even know where to begin, in all honesty, because there's just so much that does not work about this film. I think at the top of the list it would have to be how nothing happens. Like, fuck all happens. There's literally just the same thing throughout the film. It is Rocco and Hubie either arguing and fighting, or Hubie insisting that Rocco has a good side, and that's it from their end. And then we'll cut over to Drake going to Marina saying, hey, marry me, and Marina's like, no, that is the film. That is all that happens. And yes, there are sometimes a conflict, but for the most part, that's all that happens. And
well, you forgot the 70 times that Rocco and Hubie were running for their lives, and Rocco was like, run for your life, forget the pebble. And Hubie was like, no. And then he put them in grave danger to get the pebble again.
Pretty much, yeah. And I get that the film wants to do this so it can build up to the end where Marina says, oh, I don't want the pebble, I want you. But that kind of sentiment really downplays the effort that Hubie went through if you're gonna have that kind of like, I don't know, twist. But speaking of Marina, what annoys me is that I don't get why we should care that Marina is banished, because all the penguins in this film are so mean-spirited. They're all jerks. And, like, I just feel like, why should Marina stay? It's not exactly good for her. Like, for example, they all laugh at Hubie's misfortune. They shame Marina for liking Hubie. They enable Drake's abusive behavior. Why should she stay? Yeah, like, it might be risky for her to leave, but it's not like there's no other penguins in the entire world. She can find another community that doesn't have a really harsh law that banishes them for not mating. And, like, that's the other thing. Why do they have that law? Because, like, if every penguin wasn't required to mate, then that would be great, because then you wouldn't be overpopulating the community and there'll be less mouths to feed. It's just dumb. And they introduced that law out of nowhere. Drake just goes, ah!
I was kind of thinking it wasn't a real law. I thought it was kind of something that Drake pulled out of his ass.
Oh my god, I don't know, because that's another issue of the film, is that they barely develop this community beyond being, like, just meme penguins getting on with their lives and all hating
really
Hubie.
Anyone.
Sorry?
They don't really develop anyone, which
but
is a
like,
big problem with the movie.
It's really hard to. There's no world building at all for this penguin community. But like, I'm personally unsure if that was Drake making shit up or not. I would buy it because he's a narcissist. I completely would buy that he would gaslight Marina into thinking that, but the film never confirms it. Although Drake does later threaten Marina that he'll kill her if she doesn't marry him, which does make Drake look indecisive, but you could argue that perhaps the killing threat was a last resort after his first threat didn't go through.
On the topic of character development, why didn't they just start out the movie having Hubie and Marina already being friends? Because that would make the whole rest of the movie make so much more sense. At the beginning of the movie, Hubie's like, we've never even talked to each other. Then they have one conversation with each other, and then they love each other. And really, the fact that they've never talked to each other doesn't impact the movie at all. So you could have had it start out with them like already talking to each other. They've grown up in this community together. We know that already. So just make them be friends, and then it would make sense as to why she likes him so much.
It's a very shallow romance, and it's another reason on top of a pile of reasons why I just didn't care about what was happening. I was not fussed whether Hubie would get back in time to, like,
well, I was worse than not caring, because I hated Hubie and I wanted him to die. And that's because the development they tried to give him was, you know, when Marina's talking about him, she's like, oh, he's great, he cares about others, he's very kind. They don't show any of that. Instead, they show him being an idiot who doesn't care about others and puts his so-called friends in mortal danger. The friend that he only got by basically forcing him to say, okay, we're friends, because he's like, oh, I'm gonna hold my breath and kill myself if you don't say that you're my friend.
Yeah, he is very manipulative, incredibly manipulative, because there was, at the same time, he lies to Rocco saying, hey, if you come back to my community, there's someone there who will teach you to fly, and I know that's your dream. He's not a very good role model for kids. They're trying to go for this wholesome, nice personality for him, but they don't sell it when he's just both annoying
he acts like an asshole.
and like obnoxious. He's very obnoxious.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, Rocco, I won't laugh at your dream. Immediately laughs at his dream.
Absolutely. And like, he's supposed to be the light compared to the darkness when you put him next to Drake, and it's like, well, you're not really. You're just the less evil one.
Yeah, they're both pretty much the same, except for Hubie's toned down just a little bit because he's not an actual murderer.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. What did you think of Rocco?
He was okay. I mean, honestly, I feel like I liked him more than I would have, just because he was next to Hubie, and Hubie was such a terrible character. I was really confused at the end where he could just magically fly and he wasn't even flapping.
That is a real frustrating thing about this film. Like with the lore, it just brings up plot points and story turns completely out of nowhere. And it's not just the like Rocco can suddenly fly in the finale. You notice how Hubie sees what Marina is doing through the Pebble. Since when could that happen? And it's not like Hubie's like, oh wow, the Pebble can really do this. He just starts looking at the Pebble and it's like, okay, that's what's happening with Marina. Well, why are you not shocked? Why are you not taken back by this? This is supposed to be a big moment. You've discovered this thing from outer space that can see what's happening in other places. You don't use it to your advantage that much, and again, it comes out of nowhere. Just like the songs, which come into the movie so spontaneously that I jolted up in my seat. And these musical numbers aren't even good. They're mainly fluff and noise to pad out the runtime. The love songs are corny and melodramatic because the romance lacks substance and natural development.
I wonder if you're still alive. How could you survive such a dangerous world out there? Beware my love.
While the more lively and cartoonier songs are just plain annoying, mistaking frantic and loud for funny and charming.
Take it, Rocco! Hey, Rocco, what do you call a flower before it opens?
What?
What do you call a flower before it opens?
A bud.
I love it when you call me Bud.
I mean, in Tim Curry's song, he's doing his best, but his big dramatic note in the song has to be on the word appetizer. So he had to say it like appetizer. And I'm like, that is the most awkward word that you could have put in that part of the song.
And the frustrating thing is that that's probably the closest to a good song, but mainly because Tim Curry sings it, and it's a villain song, and most villain songs are usually pretty fun.
Don't mess with Drick. Don't make me laugh so hard that you begin to ache. Don't make me laugh. Don't pull my leg.
I really felt like I was getting very rip-off Beauty and the Beast vibes.
Oh,
from the
totally.
movie.
Drake is Gaston. Drake is just a Gaston clone.
Yeah, and the Pebble is the mirror from Beauty and the Beast, basically. It has like the same green effect around it too.
Yeah. It is. It is. A lot of it is. It's not like a direct duplicate, but like there are some distracting elements there, and the film doesn't try very hard to disguise that. Oh, and the film also gets distracted so easily. So easily, like, because like it creates this tension and urgency that Hubie needs to get back to his home to propose to Marina before like Drake can do anything, and it really wants to build up how important that is. But then Hubie's like, oh, by the way, Rocco, what's your dream? And then they start chatting about that, and like sometimes the story just stops so it can be about Rocco's flying fantasy out of nowhere.
I mean, the last like 20 minutes or something of the movie that's the part where stuff actually happens.
Yes.
But that part is just confusing because the only way they could have the good penguins win is by pulling stuff out of their ass. So I'm just convinced that they all died at the end, and then the part where like Rocco shows up is just a dream that they had like before they die all the way or something. And this is the same feeling I got when I was watching Don Bluth's Thumbelina movie, where it's like, oh, this is terrible, and then the only way they win at the end is by having the story just pull ridiculous stuff out of its ass.
Yeah.
Because in that movie, too, Thumbelina just randomly sprouts wings. And she's like, oh, I can fly! And Rocco's like, oh, I can fly!
Yeah.
So, what is with, like, this random flight ability that these people can have? I don't understand.
That's the thing, is that I know Don Bluth has confirmed that a lot of these later, weaker films, they did suffer from a lot of studio interference. So he's not entirely to blame. There was companies kind of like getting in the way and stuff. But when you mention things like that, he's still responsible, and there's still like a consistent series of negative traits and flaws in those films that can't always be credited to those studios.
Yeah, well, I mean, if they wanted a happy ending, I could think of better ways that they could get the happy ending than having Rocco show up and then magically be able to fly.
My idea would be to change what the Pebble can do, because the ability to see what's happening in other places doesn't really add that much to the adventure. It doesn't really help Hubie and Rocco out that much. But a magic pebble that can help penguins fly for a little bit, we don't want to overpower them, that's something. That could help Hubie and Rocco get out of jams and make the pebble more important beyond being a proposal item. So then in the finale, when the penguins are falling to their deaths, they can use the pebble to fly out, because it's been established already that's its power. And the tension can come from, we need to fly before the magic wears out. What would you say looks worse, the Happy Feet penguins or the penguins in this movie?
The penguins in this movie, definitely.
Ooh, interesting.
I mean, at least the Happy Feet penguins, they tried to make them look a little bit like penguins. In this one, they kind of threw that out the window and made them weird hybrid animals.
I think personally I can tolerate the Pebble and the Penguin designs more, because I really just can't stand Uncanny Valley designs. I can't tolerate them. They make me feel sickly. But I get why you don't like the designs of Pebble and Penguin. That's just like my comparison, really.
Well, weren't you kind of like uncomfortable by about Marina's design? Like, she has that necklace, but then they drew these lines, and I don't know what the deal was, but it made the necklace look like it was super tight, and that was just weird. Like, she's being choked by her own necklace, and Hubie is like this weird penguin body, but then he's got like this face that looks more like an animated bear, and then he has that ridiculous hat. I hate that so much, and I hate the thing where it's like the ears flap, even if it's like your actual ears. That's disgusting. But when it's the ears of your hat, like, how does that work? That's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. And then just like Drake, I've already talked about him, but he looks disgusting as well.
Okay, we've made that very clear. But like, despite his design, what do you think of Tim Curry providing his voice?
That was great. That was the only good thing about the movie, was Tim Curry's character and his voice, because he was doing like, I think he was trying to do a weird mix between evil British villain and like American evil dude bro.
Yeah,
and
it's
it
a
was
very
great.
Jock kind of vibe to it, yeah.
Wake up and smell the seaweed, you little fool.
Nobody's going to marry a loser like you. Now give me that stupid pebble.
No, it's from Marina.
It was hilarious. I loved it. I watched those scenes over and over because I didn't want to get to the part later on that was really terrible.
I was the same. I kept pausing this film. I wanted a lot of breathers. But yeah, I definitely agree. He, even though there's not much to work for him, he is putting in so much effort. And he is, yeah, he's just so fun. He is really fun. I wouldn't say that this is like one of his top best performances, but considering how weak all the other aspects in this film are, it really is a triumph.
And how weak the rest of the voice casting is.
I don't know. I disagree, because like I really kind of liked some of the other voice performances. To be honest, I wouldn't say like they're amazing. I do feel like with some better direction and better scripting, they could be better, but, like, I like what the actors were trying to do. I really do like Martin Short. I think he's very versatile and talented, but the problem with Martin Short is with the wrong kind of direction, he can be insufferable. And there's a fine line with his performance in this film. And I do like Jim Belushi. I know a lot of people consider him to be like, oh, he's the poor man's John Belushi, but I think he's got a very interesting voice. I like his voice in things like My Neighbors the Armadas and Hey Arnold. And even though he's playing a very passive-aggressive character here, I like his voice.
I wonder how far it is to Antarctica.
3,000 miles in that direction, but you'll never make it.
I will so. I'm fit.
Hey, trust me on this one.
Well, okay, I guess, Marina and Rocco were kind of just, they were fine. They were doing what they could do. They were doing, like, the average stuff. I was kind of annoyed by some of the extras' voices because they were doing really, like, out there cartoony stuff, which didn't blend in with, you know, it didn't really blend in very well, I don't think. And then I hated Martin Short as the main guy because he doesn't even sound like a romantic lead. He doesn't sound like a romantic lead, he doesn't look like a romantic lead, and he certainly doesn't act like a romantic lead.
The point is that he's the nerd, and it wants to prove that geeks too can get the girl, and that Drake is the jock, and he's...
Okay, well, what is supposed to attract us to this character?
Oh, I have
They're
no
not gonna
idea.
do the design or the actions or the voice or anything.
No, I wouldn't agree that he's not charmingly nerdy. He's annoying. He's annoyingly nerdy, but, like, I get what the film was going for. I get what it was attempting to do.
I mean, I've heard performances where they do, like what you said, the charmingly nerdy. Like, I'm not saying that his voice has to be like the liquid gold of Tim Curry's voice. It just has to not be the kind of voice where you want to immediately punch him in the face, which is what his voice was.
Sometimes for me, I will admit I got to those points, but I think it's because it sounds subtle and underplayed compared to his performance as Ben in Treasure Planet. Which is saying a lot. And I recently rewatched Treasure Planet, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about this.
Oh, Treasure Planet, that's a good movie. We should have watched that.
I've already reviewed it, and it doesn't star Tim Curry.
Would have been better if it starred Tim Curry.
Who would Tim Curry play in Treasure Planet, do you think?
See, you keep on asking me these things, and my answer is the same every time. He plays all the characters.
But he's already played Captain John Silver in Muppet Treasure Island, so he can just reprise his role.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, one thing, kind of nitpicky thing about the movie, before I get into my final thoughts. So, you keep on saying that the penguins are, like, dealing with getting married, and the movie is obviously assuming that, you know, this whole ritual, full moon ritual thing is them, like, getting married, because they're using all of that kind of imagery. But they're also trying to have it both ways by calling it mating, because they're like, oh, they're penguins. And I'm like, please, you're not drawing them as penguins. You're drawing them as disgusting hybrids. Just call it getting married, because that's what it is. And it makes it weird when you say mate. Like, when they have the big proposal with Hubie and Marina, he's like, Marina, will you mate with me? Yeah, the only time they actually call it marriage is when it would be really weird to call it mating, because they used it when they're like, Drake can't force Marina to marry him. That's when they used it. So I'm like, well, just call it that, because that's what it is, and it's weird that you're calling it mating.
Yeah, it's not like kids would be like, oh, I hope that those penguins mate. That's why I bought this DVD. Oh boy, Penguin shagging.
Or, you know, if you want to have it both ways, where it's kind of marriage, but you still have the animal, it's different kind of thing, then call it like pair bonding or something.
Yeah, that'll be cute. And it'd fit, yeah.
Yeah. It's easy. I came up with that just now.
I never noticed, until you brought it up, I never realized, like, oh wait, that is kind of strange how they they keep referring to it as mating. So yeah, final thoughts, Viva.
Final thoughts. Only watch the scenes with Tim Curry if you have to watch it. The best part is the initial kind of standoff between Hubie and Drake, I guess, at the very beginning of the movie, when he's really leaning into the voice. That's the best part, but I would not recommend it at all. I would give it no stars.
Wow! You do realize that means that you think so far out of all the films we've done on this show, this is the worst one. Are you standing by that?
What's the other animated?
You've never given a naught out of. You've never ever given a naught out of 10.
We did. I know we did Ferngully. Was there another like Tim Curry animated?
Yeah, Garfield 2. I can't remember what you gave that, but I'm sure it wasn't a naught out of 10. Because I think you kind of like you gave it like a few points for Tim Curry.
Oh. Well, Tim Curry is in this one. He's pretty good.
So, which is worse, Garfield 2 or The Pebble and the Penguin?
I think Pebble and the Penguin is worse. I'm
Wow.
gonna stick with the 0 out of 10 because at least with Garfield 2 there was something to look at that, you know, and they actually look like animals and they weren't disgusting like.
I don't know. Garfield
designs.
looks pretty creepy. I remember we really didn't like his design.
I mean, he was pretty creepy, but for the rest of the animals, they use like real animals, right?
Yeah, I remember. Oh, there was a couple of CGI ones, wasn't there, as well? There was like I think the rat or the mouse was CGI in some scenes. I can't remember. It's Garfield too.
Well, they tried to make them look like animals. This one, it was like I didn't want to watch it because they were so ugly. And I have a thing. I hate ugly character designs.
Oh, that's a totally understandable grievance to have. The Pebble and the Penguin is the very definition of average mediocrity to me. A film that lacks any imagination in its adventure. It's mainly just filler until the final conflict between Hubie and Drake. Not to mention, the strongly unlikable characters are very difficult to tolerate, let alone sympathise with. Every time I watch it, it feels like a chore because it's so boring and obnoxious. I may not be the target audience for this movie, but I think kids deserved much better than what was delivered, because this movie is painfully uninspired and insulting. Also, the great thing about Don Bluth's better films is that they're so well made and engaging that you can appreciate them as an adult too. I'm sure Don Bluth had good intentions, and I know that studio forces put certain pressures on him, but I really dislike this film. I'm going to give it a rating of 3 out of 10. I've been Jamboree, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Church of Tim Curry. And I've been Viva Becker. I love Pebble and the Penguin. 10 out of 10. Bye!